Okay, so we've heard much about successes and some shortcomings of organisations' current practices. And so it seems fair to say that while there are some really good pockets of success, there's probably large swathes of inactivity going on. And as Erica points out, that might be at the big end of town. And I suggest that this is a national issue for us. And we all know that because we face many, many challenges from geography, climate, a whole range of things that this room knows all too well. And so we must be able to thrive in the face of those challenges. Why? Well, that secures our prosperity and well-being of ourselves, our homes, communities, businesses, and society. So our goal could be this one. Public, private and civil society organisations are able to thrive through periods of crisis and change. So some very familiar words there. So what I want to talk to you about is some thoughts, just to offer up some ideas, get your reactions to how we might actually incentivise that outcome across all sectors. But before I do that, and given I come from the insurance industry, it would probably be remiss, now that I'm apparently highly paid, if I did not try to drum up some business and talk to you about insurance for a little bit and its role in supporting organisational resilience. Now, the insurance industry provides a huge range of products that can assist, talking businesses here in particular, to operate through and recover from an emergency. Obviously, the policies a business should have are going to vary with that business because the protection needed by a plumber is different to that needed by a restaurant or a brewer or an aluminium smelter. So the needs are varied, and happily, we have a product for all of them. But let's consider business interruption insurance. These policies will help businesses that are impacted by damage or an inability to access their premises, so that's good. Failure of utilities, it's pretty useful. Closure of transport routes, and interruption even to customer and supplier premises. So it sounds like a pretty good product, and we know from the Canterbury experience that many organisations didn't have it, or the settings of it weren't quite right for their business. Now, of course, as you'd expect, being insurance, there are obviously lots of stand-downs and caveats that apply to those sorts of products, and actual cover will be dependent on the policy and the provider and your business. But it seems to me that this type of policies a really important one for organisations to have. Yet most organisations don't. And there are many reasons for this, and we don't have time to discuss it, but the point is that numbers ranging from maybe about 20 to 30% of organisations have business interruption insurance. And if it's protecting them against all the sorts of things that can get in the way of them surviving, then it seems to me that's a pretty good product to have. But the interesting point here is that obviously insurance isn't going to enable them to survive. In the parlance, we are financial indemnifiers of loss, i.e. we will cut a cheque to help cover the costs when things go wrong. We're not going to stop things going wrong in the first place. So insurance is only ever going to be a bit of a backstop, and businesses need to get through, and therefore requires a pretty broad consideration of risk and impacts and how they're going to be managed. We play a part. I encourage everyone to consider us as their part and buy some of our product, but we're only ever going to be a part of a broader consideration of risk and resilience. And so at the heart of this, I think, is an organisation's considerations of the risk that they face and how best they respond. And importantly, I think there's an element here that we could label belief. A belief that they're actually going to be impacted. That through their own actions they can reduce those impacts. That they have the resources to take and sustain these actions. And a belief that it's an essential part of business to do so. Now, some organisations believe in these things and they invest. Others don't, and they choose not to act. And so the thought I'm offering is this one here. We can't actually rely on the enlightened self-interest of organisations if we're to improve. It has got us this far, and as Erica suggests, we've made some reasonably good progress. but I'm going to suggest to you it's not going to get us too much further. And so the question is, how do we get organisations to act? How do we get the public sector, the private sector, and I guess civil society organisations to take the step? And so some ideas. Not suggesting that these are particularly unique, brilliant, or the answers, so gauntlet right back at you. But I offer them up, right? Some of them may have been tried before. I think some of them have. Some of them might actually be underway, but my knowledge here is probably a little imperfect. But I aim to offer them up as some ideas and maybe spark some questions and conversation. So, first, we need a bit of overt leadership on this issue, making resilience an everyday front of mind. Now, MB and McDem could provide the backbone of that sort of effort, with private and civil society organisations drawn in. Business New Zealand, they should have a role perhaps. Resilient organisations, the Business Continuity Institute, Local Government New Zealand. And collectively, where are these organisations in actually promoting the issue and providing the supporting information, resources and tools, right? A lot of the bits that we'd want for that are in place, but there is nothing joining it together. And so that sort of stuff needs unlocking. If we're to kind of make this an everyday conversation and make it the normal part of business to do this, to plan and to consider risk. Second, there are ways in which we could put positive pressure on organisations. And again, all these mechanisms I'm going to read out, they exist, but we don't necessarily use them for this purpose. McDem, we have lifeline utilities, utilities, I think that's the right term. We could extend those and the requirements. So we talk about telcos and, pipes and wires, but what about supermarkets? It's great that the power's on, but there's no food to cook. Should we be rethinking who are our vital utilities and changing the obligations we place on them? State Services Commission, thinking about chief executive KPIs. What gets measured gets managed, right? So let's change the measures on our state sector leaders to make them think about resilience or climate change or natural hazard risk reduction. Treasury updating planning and reporting obligations such as statements of intent. The Reserve Bank updating risk management obligations on licensed banks, licensed insurers and other entities they oversee. Strangely enough, as an insurer of natural hazards, there's nothing really that the Reserve Bank expects of us around that sort of stuff, apart from hold lots of capital. There's room for change there. DIA thinking about local authority governance requirements. The NZX updating listing and disclosure rules for our listed entities. The External Reporting Board changing accounting and disclosing standards. The Institute of Directors updating their resources and professional guidance. WorkSafe updating health and safety obligations. All of these mechanisms are in place and they touch the big end of town and a lot of organisations beyond that. None of them, bold statement, but none of them currently think about this sort of stuff or require organisations to do so. So let's change them. Let's change those mechanisms so we are forcing organisations to think about this, the keystone organisations to do it. And lastly, there's seeding action. How am I going for time? Great. Excellent. But this one's perhaps a little more firmly in the public sector, and it's about, it's actually about moving away from the perennial focus on response. Now this one might be happening, and I think, Glenn, you mentioned it, but we need to identify the most critical functions of government and ensure that sufficiently robust plans and resources are in place for them. We have a national risk register. We have a handbook that talks about ODESC and how incidents and big risks are going to be responded to. We don't yet have a single plan for the key functions of government and how we're going to protect them. Now, I'm sure that exists in pockets, but DPMC, where's the plan to keep government running? Public sector often has a whole bunch of organisations that need to work together. Justice, police, courts and corrections, for example. Now, I assume these organisations are planning individually, are they planning for the sector to work? So who would drive that? So that we make sure that when we do arrest people, we have a cell to put them in. We can actually give them swift justice. And I think there were some issues in Christchurch in that space. And so that's probably really a bit about aligning plans across agencies and sector-wide plans. And that's especially important where some of those sectors split across public and private, right? If we think about infrastructure, which is actually doing reasonably well, it is about government infrastructure, it is about private sector infrastructure. So how do we get the plans working so that the roading network, which is generally owned across a whole bunch of agencies, even private roads, are all working together so we can actually get goods in and out of affected areas. So seeding some of those actions to draw businesses in would be another possibility. So I'll leave it there. So the point there is we can't rely on enlightened self-interest, and we need to actively nudge and incentivise businesses to start doing this, and central and local government.